Welcome to Crossroads. It turns out a lot of the American influencer accounts, the MAGA accounts, the pro-America accounts, the banging of the drums, were actually being run from other countries. And this came to light after X began revealing the countries of origin of every single account. So if you're in Bangladesh, we're going to know it now. And it turns out a lot of them were. But the biggest revelation from this, while operations sowing division among Trump supporters were being deceptively run from other countries. There were foreign accounts pretending to be Americans, and they were trying to cause divisions among the MAGA movement, basically. And also, meanwhile, after Democrat members of Congress released a video calling for troops to defy illegal orders, the Pentagon is now investigating one of them, and the FBI is investigating all of them, turning into much bigger case, probably. I'll be talking about these topics and a lot more today, so make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment. Let's jump into it. Now, first off, more information is coming out on the social media platform X after they began doing something interesting. They started showing where accounts are being operated from, and it turns out that a lot of people saying they're American influencers and MAGA influencers and, how to be a tough guy influencers, they're being run a lot from India, but all over the place. These are not American accounts. These are fake accounts or people pretending to be Americans, lying to people, and some of them are even trying to cause division among Trump supporters. Well, it turns out there's a lot more to it. They've been deceptively doing this. Breitbart said it. It says on Sunday, many X users flocked to popular anonymous accounts to check where they were located and began sharing screenshots of what they found, revealing that many of the MAGA, as in Make America Great Again accounts, sowing division and infighting within the conservative movement are actually based in foreign nations, including India, Nigeria, and Bangladesh. So people who've been causing divisions, trying to incite problems among conservatives, making controversies, they're not even American. They were foreign accounts, and they're just pretending to be either to make money or to intentionally do this. Now, that's one of the individuals, Engelman, who did the investigations, shared a screenshot of the About page of the popular Republicans Against Trump account, which boasts a staggering 978,200 followers, and revealed the anti-Trump account is based in Austria. Oh, awkward, right? Republicans Against Trump, almost 1 million followers, and it's not even American. It's based in Austria. And it said, notably, after being caught, some foreign-based accounts posing as U.S.-based began using a VPN, a virtual private network, to appear as though they were in the United States. Although it says, however, users began noting that an account exclamation point next to the account's location reveals they are using a VPN. Briefly on VPNs, virtual private networks, basically what this does, you've probably seen the advertisements for them. You can buy an online service, and it basically will hide your actual location. And you can do this people do it for different reasons. You can access video streaming using what they are given in a different country. Maybe they're given different movies or different access in different country. These are very commonly used in countries where there's a lot of censorship, like China, for example, where people will use a VPN and, basically bounce their connection off maybe an American account, and it will let them access the internet available to Americans. There is the reality that the internet is not a pure, unfiltered thing. The internet is actually a collection of what you call intranets. Internal internets, nation-based. And within each nation, you're going to be fed different content. In some countries, certain content is illegal that's not going to be illegal elsewhere. And so what you say, what you do, what you can access will be different depending on which global intranet you are operating within. And so people use VPNs typically for this reason. And, in the United States, we have a generally open internet. People typically will only use them for privacy reasons. Honestly, a lot of times for illegal activity, but for privacy reasons. Some people just don't like, being monitored by their IP provider, which is also a big reason for. So what people are doing here is India, Bangladesh, Nigeria. They're bouncing their accounts off of American servers, again, virtual private network providers, to make it appear that their accounts are being run from the United States. But what X has done to get around this is it actually puts an indicator if someone is using a VPN. And this actually does alleviate some of the big security concerns people were raising, because when X announced, hey, we're going to start revealing country of origin, it did create a lot of problems because, as I mentioned, the internet is not a global internet. The internet is a global collection of intranets. And in some countries, you can get in a lot of trouble for posting things on the intranet. In the United Kingdom, if you criticize migration policies, you might go to prison. In China, if you believe in religion or democracy, you might go to the gulag. In parts of the Arab world, you might go to jail for a lot of things, actually. And so because of this, there were concerns that if X were to reveal country of origin, that the countries of origin would actually begin arresting people. So the way X has apparently gotten around it is, fine, we're going to show if which country you're from, but if you have security or safety concerns and you're using a VPN for that purpose, it will merely put an exclamation point, not reveal your country of origin, so as to protect you from possible repercussions from a totalitarian government. And that I think is the reason they're doing it. Now, one X user also wrote, quote, one of the most openly racist accounts towards Indians posing as an American is actually run from Bangladesh. And the user shared a screenshot of the about page of an account dubbed America First with 67,600 followers, again revealing it was based in Bangladesh. And this causes problems when you think about it, because if you have an America First or pro-Trump or, we're all Americans type name, and they're posting nothing but hatred and nothing but racism, what does that do? Well, you might have seen a lot of journalists complaining, X, the unfiltered platform of X is revealing the racism of Trump supporters. These are not Trump supporters. They're like people from Bangladesh and India, Nigeria, like Austria, random countries, pretending to be that and trying to make money off people by sowing divisions or doing it intentionally for some other reason entirely. We don't really know. Now, one of them, it says this, quote, MAGA is dead, brought to you by some tool in Europe. Conservative commentator and host of LFA TV's Ungoverned, Sean Farash, wrote, and he shared a screenshot of an account boasting 93,000 followers. Another one said, call me old-fashioned, but I don't think folks from foreign countries should be allowed to vote in our elections. The X account, War Hamster, boasting nearly 23,000 followers, wrote, to which another X user quipped, man, you don't even have elections, and then shared a screenshot revealing the account is based in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. So in other words, this account, again, pretending to care about American elections and saying, quote, our elections, as if they were here, is based in the United Arab Emirates. Another one said, quote, our tax money goes to Israel. And this is from a Congolese man, over 100,000 followers. Another said, sharing the about page from an account which has garnered 128,600 followers in X, alongside a screenshot of one of their posts, which read, Israel is a terrorist state funded by our tax dollars. Notably, one of the big things that came about, there's been a lot of anti-Israel sentiment. Some of it is legitimate. Turns out some of it is not. But it turns out a lot of the most aggressive X accounts promoting these narratives are based in the Arab world, and they're pretending to be conservatives. And so a lot of the noise you're seeing is not even Americans. A lot of the noise you're seeing is accounts from other countries entirely. The page keeps going on and on with examples of ones that have been discovered. I'll show you one more. Quote, 392,000 followers. Another commented, sharing the about page from an account dubbed MAGA Nation, based in non-EU Eastern Europe. So, not everything is as it seems, it seems. It turns out, again, a lot of foreign accounts are pretending to be conservatives, pretending to be MAGA. either to, grow accounts and make money on X, because actually X does have a monetization feature. You can make money on X. It does allow you to make a profit by getting attention like this. So a lot of scammers, a lot of people just trying to make money by manipulating things people want to hear, they're doing this on X. And a lot of it, again, is not legitimate. It's illegitimate. Now, meanwhile, after Democrat members of Congress released a video calling for troops to defy illegal orders, the Pentagon is now allegedly investigating one of them, and the FBI is actually questioning all of them, and this is turning into a much bigger issue. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.
All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment. You are, of course, watching Crossroads with Joshua Philipp. I'm just here to share a message about American Hartford Gold, my own personal gold and silver bullion dealer. Now, obviously, the recent tariffs have made the markets super turbulent and volatile. With every new piece of tariff news, the markets seem to either crash up or crash down. And of course, it's worth mentioning that these conditions don't only affect Wall Street. They affect all of us through our investments and our retirement accounts. That's why I'd like to introduce you to a company that I trust and I myself use to secure my own savings, American Hartford Gold. They specialize in helping Americans move our assets into something tangible, into something you can actually hold, which is physical gold and physical silver, two precious metals that act as a hedge against all those decisions being made in Washington, D.C. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They have thousands of 5-star reviews, and they make the whole buying process super simple. Your metals can be shipped directly to your door, or you can transfer your current retirement account to a tax-advantaged gold IRA. And the best part is that right now, American Hartford Gold is offering an exclusive offer. When you call them today and you mention the name Joshua, you could receive up to $15,000 in free silver with your initial investment. Take advantage of their special offer. You can either just call them at 877-260-2764 or text Joshua to 65532. All their information will also be down in the description box below. And now, back to Crossroads.
Welcome back. After Democrat members of Congress released a video calling on troops to defy illegal orders, the Pentagon is now investigating at least one of them, and the FBI is questioning all of them. Now, first of all, let me show you that video to refresh your memory. It features Democratic representatives from across the country. Watch this.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
And the intelligence community.
Who take risks each day
To keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
And intelligence community professionals.
against American citizens.
like us. You all swore an oath.
To protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad.
But from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law.
Or our Constitution.
We know this is hard.
And that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army.
Our Navy,
The Air Force.
Your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution,
And who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
don't give up.
don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Now, after that was released, President Donald Trump made several posts on Truth Social. Trump is calling this an act of sedition. He's even calling them to face the death penalty, and he's now calling for them to be arrested. The FBI is now questioning them. Now also, Senator Mark Kelly is also being investigated allegedly by the Pentagon. Now, the AP says this. The Pentagon announced on Monday, meaning this is not even rumor, that it is investigating Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona over possible breaches of military law, which is a big deal because that means if you breach military law, you're not going to face trial in a normal court. You're going to face trial in a military court. If you violate military law, you're going to have a really bad time because you can have these, woke DAs and stuff like that. You're much less likely to get that in a court martial. If you're standing before a military judge, your life is going to be significantly more difficult. But they're saying that he has breaches of military law. This is after the former Navy pilot joined a handful of other lawmakers in a video calling for troops to defy illegal orders. And notes the Pentagon statement posted on social media, meaning this is public, cited a federal law that allowed retired service members to be recalled to active duty on orders of the defense secretary for possible court-martial or other measures. Ooh, that's bad. Basically, again, the Pentagon is saying, look, you're no longer in service, but guess what? There's a federal law that can recall you to active duty, meaning welcome back to the military, and we're only welcoming you back to the military so you could face trial in a military court. That is very interesting. It notes that it is extraordinary for the Pentagon, which until President Donald Trump's second term had usually gone out of its way to act and appear apolitical, to directly threaten a sitting member of Congress with investigation. Again, this is AP saying it. No, AP is saying this, right? It is actually pretty unusual, though. I don't think we've seen cases where a sitting member of Congress is, at least not in my memory, has faced something like this. But it does note, it comes after Trump ramped up the rhetoric by accusing the lawmakers of sedition punishable by death in a social media post days after the video was released last week. It says in a statement on Monday, the Pentagon suggested that Kelly's statements in the video interfered with the loyalty, morale, or good order and discipline of the armed forces by citing the federal law that prohibits such actions. Suggesting, again, like, look, if you want to call out a specific illegal order, this order being made is against the law. Here's why. This is the foundation of it. I personally call on troops to defy this particular order, and here's why. That's one thing. But what these members of Congress were doing is something else, and this is where the controversy is. They were giving a general statement. They called generally to defy illegal orders. They did not say which one. This means if the military gives an order, the effect of it is going to be for American troops to question every single order. Oh, geez, is this illegal? Is the media saying it's illegal? Is some random local judge saying it's illegal? Oh, no, they said it before. And so if the media says something, it may sow kind of doubt within the minds of American troops. And Democrats are also saying that if they get reelected, that they might even retroactively go after troops who had followed these types of orders. There are threats like this being made against members of ICE. There are threats like this being made against FBI members of Trump's cabinet. We've seen this previously. And so if Democrats are saying defy orders because once we come back into office, we're going to deem what you're doing illegal and then come after you, in some ways that could be interpreted as them threatening the military to carry out what under the Trump administration are deemed to be legal orders. And so this is where the controversy is right now. Who says illegal versus legal? And if Democrats are using threats of arrest and prosecution against American troops, saying that in the future when they regain power, they're going to go after them, is that legal? This is where the debate is right now. Now, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth also issued a statement on concerns about the video. And here's what Pete Hegseth wrote. He said the despicable video urging the Department of War troops to refuse illegal orders may seem harmless to civilians, people like you and I. He said, but it carries a different weight inside the military. He said this was a politically motivated influence operation, which some of you had pointed out previously, by the way. He said this, quote, it never named a specific illegal order. In other words, it didn't specifically say this is what is illegal, this is why. He said it created ambiguity rather than clarity. In other words, sowing doubt and mistrust. He said it used carefully scripted, legal-sounding language, seemingly to make it appear that there was a legal grounding to this statement, that you may be violating the law by carrying out, again, lawful orders. He said it subtly reframed military obedience around partisan distrust. instead of established legal processes. He said in the military, vague rhetoric and ambiguity undermines trust, creates hesitation in the chain of command, and erodes cohesion. Meaning, if an officer gives an order now and troops are in an ambiguous situation where they have to question everything, when an order is given, they're going to hesitate on every single order, regardless of whether it is legal or illegal. That hesitation is going to damage the ability of the military to carry out operations, cause distrust among troops, discussion. Are we allowed to do this? Is this legal? Are we going to go to jail? Oh no, this type of thing. And because of this, he said it erodes cohesion. The military cannot properly operate because of this type of rhetoric. He said the military already has clear procedures for handling unlawful orders, meaning there's something already in place to do this. And he said it does not need political actors injecting doubt into an already clear chain of command. He said as veterans of various sorts, the seditious six, which they're calling them, these members of Congress, he says knew exactly what they were doing, sowing doubt through a politically motivated influence operation. He said the Department of War won't fall for it or stand for it. And if they're not going to stand for it, that means they might do something about it. And what are they going to do about it? Well, at the very least, at the very most, they're going to possibly arrest some of them by calling the former service members back to service and then making them face court-martial. This could be pretty dang significant. Look, let's put it this way. If sedition is punishable by death, you're very unlikely to face that in a civilian court. You're significantly more likely to face that in a military court. And will they do that to a member of Congress? I mean, have we ever seen that? Maybe not since like the Civil War. It would be controversial. It may actually backfire on Republicans a bit unless they can win the game of information here. This is pretty significant. Now, also, meanwhile, secret recordings from Campbell's, as in Campbell's Soup and so on, which included allegations the company used bioengineered meat, was being released. And these comments were allegedly made by Martin Bali, its vice president of information technology, and came to light in a recent lawsuit. This is an excerpt from his rant from CBS News. Watch.
Now, CBS News did get a copy of that recorded phone call. Garza's attorney is saying that this was secretly recorded. So take a listen to part of that conversation.
I don't buy those products barely anymore. It's healthy. Now that I know what the in it. Even in a can of soup, I look at it. Look at bioengineered meat. I don't want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer. Do you?
Now, part of the statement included him saying, quote, we have, I'm going to remove the bad words. He said, we have blank for blank poor people, suggesting that we don't have anything good if somebody is poor. He said, who buys our blank, suggesting why would anybody want this? He says, I don't buy Campbell's products, barely anymore. It's not healthy now that I know what the blank's in it. He's suggesting that he's aware that the products are not good for you. He said, bioengineered meat, exclamation point. I don't want to eat a blank piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer. Now, this is making a lot of controversy because some people are framing it as like a racist rant and him ranting against poor people. I think there's a bit more to it, personally. Now, on the point of chicken from a 3D printer, I think he's saying this like figuratively, not literally. If you were to 3D print food, it would be more expensive, not less expensive. But I do think he is referring to bioengineered meat. Maybe it's GMO, genetically modified meat, which is different from, again, like purely artificial. Unfortunately, a lot of meat these days is GMO, right? And so you could call that bioengineered, GMO products. But what he's stating basically, he's stating that poor people in the United States don't have options for healthy food. He's saying, I personally believe based on his statements, that poor people have no good options. And when people buy these types of products, they're usually buying it because they don't have a lot of money. And he's complaining that poor people don't have anything good available to them. Why would somebody want to eat this if they have other options? He says, I don't eat it. Why would I want to eat this stuff? So it seems to be that he's complaining about the quality of the food, suggesting that it's not good. And this is turning into a very broad controversy with him. Is he the bad guy for saying that? I don't know. You be the judge. But I do think it raises a broader concern, actually, of over-processed foods, right? Something the MAHA movement is talking about, Make America Healthy Again, something that is part of the broader national debate, that frankly, a lot of poor people in the United States, because of ultra-processed foods, they don't have access to like decent food. And maybe these companies that do service poorer demographics of people should include better quality food for these people so they're not destroying their health. I think that's part of a broader conversation maybe we should have as a country. Now, meanwhile, the Department of Justice has brought charges against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. You might remember this, but guess what? A federal judge has dropped the charges. So much for 2 more weeks, apparently. Charges just got dropped. New York Post said this: a federal judge dismissed the Virginia criminal case against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James on Monday, finding that interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan was improperly appointed to her position and had no lawful authority to secure indictments of either of President Trump's longtime adversaries. In other words, she's not calling into question the validity of the cases themselves in terms of the content. She's calling into question the legitimacy of how the charges were brought forward, suggesting that U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan was not appointed to her position using proper means. Now, the irony with this is that conservatives were saying the same thing about the former special counsel Jack Smith, that he was unlawfully appointed, or you could say improperly appointed. And if this is going to be taken as what you call fruit of the poisonous tree, meaning if something is done improperly, anything that grows from that improper thing is therefore considered invalid. So if an investigation is carried out, right, you're planting the seeds of a tree, an investigation is carried out, the results of the investigation being the fruits of the tree, you cannot actually use those. That is called fruit of the poisonous tree, and it needs to be discarded. So you can get cases thrown out with this. Some argue that Jack Smith, everything he did should be invalidated because of that. You could argue it was invalidated, but that's also part of the Trump teams looking into that as well, that it was basically an unlawful investigation from the first place, and they're looking into why that was. Democrats, although you could argue judges are not political. Okay, fine, believe what you want. But this judge, of course, threw out the case based on kind of the same grounds, right? Now, it notes here, both indictments, Comey and Letitia James, were dismissed without prejudice, meaning the cases can be brought again. And this is important because this doesn't mean that it's over. This doesn't mean that it's all said and done, but there's a bit more to it. It's going to be hard for them to bring it back. It said both defendants had asked that the cases be thrown out with prejudice, preventing them from being reopened. That did not happen. They can still be charged. It says, however, the ruling by senior U.S. District Judge Cameron Curry comes after the 5-year statute against Comey expired, likely meaning the case against him cannot be reopened. The good old statute of limitations, meaning if you commit a crime and you're not charged for the crime within a certain window, you're going to get away scot-free. Unless you're Donald Trump and you're in New York, where they actually changed the law to retroactively charge you and then change the law back after they charge you, which they did to Trump in New York, by the way. That is the one way you can get around a statute of limitations, is by changing the statute of limitations in order to bring charges against somebody and then changing the statute of limitations back, which again, they did against Donald Trump when they were bringing charges against him. It continues here stating, though, that Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, vowed to appeal and praised Halligan as an excellent U.S. attorney. She said, quote, "We'll be taking all available legal action, including an immediate appeal, to hold Letitia James and James Comey accountable for their unlawful conduct," Bondi said Monday at a press conference in Memphis. So what does this mean? This would be different from bringing the charges out again. The challenge that they have is because of statute of limitations. The judge's ruling, if the Justice Department goes along with it, would mean that James Comey is off scot-free, past the statute of limitations. Letitia James would still be on the hook, but not Comey, if they were to bring the charges back, right? Because without prejudice. But if the Department of Justice were to appeal it, it will go to a higher court, and the DOJ now, right, the prosecutors in this case, they would have to prove that the U.S. in addition to the normal case, they would need to also prove to the new judge that the case is valid based on the grounds that the U.S. attorney was lawfully appointed. And so that will be the way that they would have to appeal it. They're suggesting they are going to appeal it, and it's going to go higher up. The crazy reality in America is that bringing criminal charge of this nature tends to be like partisan bingo. It's like a partisan slot machine, and all the little like things going by, ding, 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 ding. It's like Republican judge or Democrat judge, and if you get ding Republican judge, you're probably going to win a Republican case, and if you give a Democrat case, you're probably going to lose it. And if you get Democrat judge ding, you're going to get the opposite. And then what happens is, well, they appeal it and they hit that slot machine again, and you get Republican Democrat judge going like this, and you hope it gets the one you want, and then you get your case. That has been the unfortunate reality of what is supposed to be a nonpartisan legal system. But let's just be honest with ourselves, it's not very nonpartisan. And notes here, though, that the feds can try to argue on appeal that they qualify for a 6-month grace period to refile the indictment after dismissal. And briefly, too, just to make my point, I'm not criticizing the justice system, but this is a point that both Democrats and Republicans have raised. Trump was saying it. How many times did Donald Trump say, I cannot get a fair trial in Washington, D.C. or the state of New York? Why was he saying that? He was saying because the jury pool will have a pre-existing bias against him because of the partisan nature of him as a political figure and because of the political divisiveness in this country, that a person's previous political donations, their previous voting patterns, which media they read, will color their interpretation of innocence or guilt based on partisan grounds. Democrats are now saying the same thing against some of the Trump cases. Hey, we can't get a fair trial. Weaponization of justice. Trump said it under Biden. Democrats are saying it under Trump. This is the reality, right? Now back to this, though. It says that Curry addressed this in her decision, talking about the 6-month grace period, right? Because, again, on this, it's saying the feds can try to argue on appeal that they qualify for 6-month grace period to refile, because they have two options here, right? Okay, so part of the problem now, statute of limitations, the U.S. attorney, again, they're arguing was not lawfully appointed, which is a big deal if the judge doesn't hold that out. The Justice Department right now is trying to appeal this, meaning they'll have to prove that the U.S. attorney was lawfully appointed. If the appeals court says, okay, we believe he was lawfully appointed, we're going to keep the case, then that means they don't have to refile the case. It means that the statute of limitations stays in place. Comey's going to still face charges, as will Letitia James. They don't have to refile it. But they're saying there's another point here, that if this does not work out and the appeals court says, no, we also agree with the lower court judge, this particular U.S. attorney was not lawfully appointed, the case gets thrown out without prejudice, meaning it can be brought back. And it's saying here that the feds, the prosecutors, can argue on appeal, right? I guess maybe this is part of the appeal, that they would qualify for a 6-month grace period to refile the indictment if that judge dismisses it. So this will be up to the appeals court. Can the federal prosecutors refile the case, probably under a different U.S. attorney? That'll be the question. And notes that Curry addressed this in her decision, saying in a footnote that Comey's case would not qualify for such a grace period. Former federal prosecutor Nima Ramadi told the New York Post. But it notes that Halligan's office can seek a new indictment against James since a statute of limitations has not run over in her case, rendering Monday's ruling a temporary procedural win, it says, for the Empire State's top lawyer, Ramadi said, meaning Letitia James is still on the hook, at least. But we'll see what happens with Comey. Now, meanwhile, after recent reports that the Doge department and Elon Musk would close shop about 8 months earlier than expected, the agency has now responded to those reports. And here's what they said. Doge said, officially, as usual, this is a fake news from Reuters. This is fake news. It says President Trump was given a mandate by the American people to modernize the federal government and reduce waste, fraud, and abuse. Just last week, Doge terminated 78 wasteful contracts and saved taxpayers $335 million. We'll be back in a few days with our regularly scheduled Friday update. Now, I guess I should, as a journalist, also issue a correction because I showed the reports yesterday also stating that Doge had closed shop 8 months early. Doge is now clarifying those were fake news. That was fake news. And so I do apologize for reporting that, frankly, because we didn't know. It turns out Doge is not gone. Maybe they're going to be in place for the next 8 months or past that if they extend it. They have continued terminating wasteful contracts. Again, they say even just within the last week, this is not the entire term, but in 1 week, they got rid of $335 million in wasteful contracts, 78 contracts total. They have also stated in follow-up reports that the news of their demise has been greatly exaggerated, which is, of course, a kind of a meme now. The rumors of my death were greatly exaggerated. Doge is not gone. They're still operating, and the media is still lying about it. That's just the reality of it. Now, also on another point, President Donald Trump has issued official pardons to 2 Thanksgiving turkeys. And in Trump's fashion, he noted, these are the largest turkeys ever pardoned by a president, the biggest turkeys ever. And he also said these are certified Maha turkeys. Watch this.
These are 2 of the largest turkeys ever presented to an American president, over 50 pounds each. It's the largest we've ever had. And those are big turkeys. Are they as good as the normal-sized turkey? Better or as good? Do they tend to be a little fatty, maybe? No, he said no. He knows the turkey business. Anyway, despite their size, Secretary Kennedy has formally certified that these are the first ever Maha turkeys. I don't know if I agree with that. These are Maha. In other words, they could be fat, but they're still Maha. They've been fattened on a steady diet of grass, beef, to allow the smoothies and all of the other things that they've been eating for this occasion. This was a really big occasion. But they've eaten every fattening food that you can eat. We wanted to really make them special, and they really are. They're like record-setting. I've never seen a turkey that big before.
All right, there you go. Happy Thanksgiving, folks. I hope you have a good times lined up for it. That said, questions, comments, anything you want to talk about, leave it in the chat. Let's jump into a discussion. And again, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Hope you all have good stuff lined up. I'm going to have a smaller, friendly Thanksgiving this year with my daughter and some family friends. No show tomorrow because it's Thanksgiving. You should all be hanging out with your families, not watching me. So enjoy your Thanksgivings, and I hope you have a great day with it. But let's talk now. Let's see. California gal, you're talking about the seditious six as Trump is, as the Pentagon is calling them, or as they call themselves, the people warning the military. You're saying they are sowing confusion among the military, and this is really a big security threat for the USA. Well, it is because, okay, if you want to hear me saying what I think is going to happen, Donald Trump is doing a lot right now to clear the way for more domestic deployment of the military. Now, what does that mean? What will that look like? It could look like what we saw in Washington, D.C., where you federalized law enforcement. It could look like what we saw in California, where they were helping, again, National Guard and the Marines were carrying out operations there, assisting federal agents, protecting them while ICE, for example, carried out deportations. It could look like what he's talking about in other states of deploying the military to help carry out operations to go after gangs or cartels or to deport people. Trump is using the military for many things right now. It could include them carrying out possible airstrikes against the cartels, maybe in Canada, but more likely in Mexico. Maybe what they're doing in Venezuela, where the press right now is even sowing doubt that these are valid military targets. And so if the Trump administration is carrying out these orders and carrying out these operations, and the media is basically saying, hey, this is all illegal, and local judges are saying it's illegal, but as it's appealed, you have higher courts saying, no, it's not. But the media is not really telling people, and every single American troop is reading mixed reports. It's illegal, it's not illegal. These are valid strikes, these are not valid strikes. And they're being told that when Democrats come back in, that they're going to face criminal charges if they've been following orders. And then they're told by these members of Congress, don't follow unlawful orders. Yeah, that might have a big effect. That might have a really serious effect on the effectiveness of the military. That very likely could cause security threats for the USA, as California gal is saying. So, I mean, it is a big deal in that regard. Kathleen White, you're saying, is there any country in this world who is not suffering centuries of unneeded internal civil war as the U.S. is? Actually, I think most of the world is facing a lot of problems right now. If you look at actually, there's interesting stuff happening in Latin America right now. Look at the mass protests in Mexico against the government because the government is saying, we want to stop the cartels, but also we're not going to stop the cartels. And if you try to stop the cartels, we're going to stop you from stopping the cartels. That's kind of awkward, isn't it? If you go into other parts of Latin America, there are very strong anti-communist movements taking place. Venezuela probably has that brewing up very soon. A lot of the population does not support Maduro. In fact, they tried overthrowing him, and he crushed the opposition. If you talk about, again, parts of Asia, South Korea has a lot of big protests taking place. Japan has a very strong conservative movement taking place. China has the laying flat movement, and actually a lot of civil disobedience taking place and a lot of protests taking place. You just don't hear much about it. I'm not sure about, I think Canada has a lot of discontent too, a lot of political turmoil. A lot of Europe has a lot of problems too. If you look at the very stark partisan divides, and even when people elect new government, they can't consolidate a party and they basically can't do anything. A lot of the world is having problems right now. And, America, we are embroiled in a very strong culture war. We're embroiled in a very strong culture war and a very strong political war. It's actually interesting. I was having a conversation with my daughter the other day, and we were talking about like dystopias, right? And what defines a dystopia? You would think of it as being a futuristic society of a totalitarian nature. And there are different types of dystopias. You have, for example, like the Orwellian state, right? The mass surveillance, everything is controlled state. You have the the Paradise Lost state, a society controlled by pleasure and indulgences, right? You have, for example, like the modern communist states, totalitarian kind of clueless governments run by the greatest of morons who want to micromanage everybody's lives. You have all these, right? You have the rainbow sparkles woke states. Hey, everything is good unless you question the validity of what I say is good, therefore you're bad and we're going to kill you or destroy your life. You have the Chinese Communist Party's social credit system state, where the entire country is kind of controlled by totalitarian AI and information stuff. It's actually very interesting from like a totalitarian point where it's going. The entire country is dominated by mass surveillance and a system that will basically cancel you through a state monopoly. Where I've said it before actually, the new gulag is not going to look like, well, in China it does also. You can get sent to like forced labor camps and re-education through labor camps. But I would say that in the future totalitarian countries, the gulag will not be some, prison in Siberia. The gulag will be, you are canceled from your bank, you are canceled from your ability to buy food, all currency is digital, your social credit score goes to 0, and you're basically forced into homelessness. You're no longer able to participate in the market. You are canceled from the market because, again, totalitarian systems of financial control. And once you're canceled from that, you can no longer make purchases. You can't buy a home, you can't buy bread, and you're homeless. That is the future gulag. The United States, we're kind of like an info dystopia. This was the way the conversation went. We're like an information dystopia. We have a lot of great freedoms, we have a lot of great things, but there is a totalitarian information system, mass censorship, not run by the government, not so much, but run instead through private institutions. The media is a mass lying machine, extremely dishonest media, systems of mass censorship which we're now uncovering, collaboration between media, banks, advertising networks in order to cancel independent voices, and a form of social control on partisan lines which boosts one side of the political sphere and censors the other side. This is a type of political totalitarianism run through a private sector which is based around information control. And this is us talking about like sci-fi and dystopias, and if we were to, you could argue, exaggerate to an extent the situation we're in as a country. This is how I would describe the more totalitarian issues we face. A lot of the totalitarianism we face in America is information manipulation and the use of information to suppress and control a population. I don't think the government is doing this. I think it's being done through private industries, and private industries that have a lot of foreign influence, and also a lot of foreign actors who are manipulating the open systems of America in order to do this. And if you think I'm sounding crazy by stating this, I'll remind you of my episode yesterday where I cited the top intel chief of Congress who basically said this, that there are American actors who are being manipulated by foreign, there are American voices, people of influence, who are being manipulated by foreign actors, and information is being used to push certain agendas based on foreign interest in the United States. This is something I've talked a lot about over the years, and if I were to describe what we face as a country, the manipulation of the information sphere as a form of social control, and the use of canceling people, whether it's debanking, censoring, demonetizing, suppressing, labeling, hit pieces. This is the system used to basically destroy political opposition. This is also something I tried highlighting, by the way, in my recent documentary, which if you haven't seen yet, please go watch it, which was, of course, the framing of Charlie Kirk and showing how the information system labeled him, falsely accused him, and basically marked him for death. There is that within our country, and I think it's horrible, actually. Emotion 007, you're saying Elon Musk recently said on Joe Rogan's show, American debt is a ticking time bomb. I would completely agree. You're saying even he doesn't know what to do exactly with it. The smartest man in the world said it. I'm beginning to get tired too. Well, and so Elon Musk's stance is this. So when Elon Musk was, joining the Trump administration and, jumping up and down and cheering, and people were laughing at him because he was kind of goofy, and he's sitting at like the dinner table, like He's sitting at like some like fancy gala, like with a tuxedo and all these like fancy looking people around him. He's like got like his fork and he's like found a way to like balance all of his silverware on some elaborate like thing. And, you know, he's doing this and he has like some like woman like mesmerized by it. You know, that's Elon Musk, right? He was a bit of an outlier. But this is purely my interpretation of him. I think that what he wants is a reduction in government spending. Okay, I know, hey, wow, Josh, how did you ever come to that conclusion? What did, you know, obviously, right? But really, I think that's what he really stands for. And I think in Doge, that probably expanded because when he was leading Doge and they were auditing different branches of the government, he was firsthand seeing how our money is being spent. Oh my gosh, like you have a system with just total lack of oversight. You have branches that even prevent Congress from having oversight. You have spending taking place where people are able to make grants with basically a lot of it based on what looks like self-interest, massive amounts of foreign interest, tons and tons of fraud, foreign spending, crazy, ridiculous programs that doesn't really serve anybody here, let alone, I think, even in other countries. And just, he was seeing this like all over the place. And then he's looking at the ticking time bomb of American debt and what that means for us. And a lot of Americans, we don't even realize how much this impacts our lives. We're at a point now where we're spending more money just on interest than we are on our military budget. And when you have members of Congress saying, you know, hey, we spend more on military than we do on welfare, we should invest, well, actually, I don't know about that, but more on education. They're saying, you know, we should invest in the American people, not on bombs and guns. The counter argument to it is we're spending more money on debt than we're spending on the military. We're spending more money on debt than we're spending on our children. We're spending more money on debt than we are, I mean, anything, maybe Medicare, Medicaid, but I think anything. And the problem with that is we're not even getting out of it. We're adding to it. We're going to reach a state soon, if we continue with this trajectory, where the taxes you pay are not even going to support the formation of government and the carrying out of government programs. The money you're spending, if we continue on this trajectory, will go almost entirely to interest. And yeah, the investment firms and foreign actors who've been buying American debt are going to make it like bandits. You know, they want it. They love it. It's fantastic for them. But it is absolutely horrible for the general well-being of the American people. This could collapse our government. And I know this sounds crazy, but this could collapse our government. Because if the ability of the government to function is rendered obsolete because we can't afford to pay for anything, because debt is so high and interest rates on debt are so high that we're just paying interest, and every American citizen is basically working and paying taxes only to pay not even pay off the debt, but pay the interest rates to foreign actors and major banks and investment firms. Like, it's insane. It basically means we're slaves. We've created a nation of slaves at that point. We are slaves to interest. And, you know, is that the way we want to live? I mean, look, being realistic, because people will say, Josh, you sound crazy, you're exaggerating. The other part would be that we just default on the debt, and, you know, it would be terrible for America because it would impact the stability of the US dollar as the world reserve currency. A lot of people would love that. The unfortunate way you have to get out of debt, though, is, well, one, maybe reduce interest rates and maybe stop allowing the manipulation of interest rates. I think slavery through the manipulation of interest rates is one of the greatest crimes against humanity that has been tolerated for far too long. The raising and manipulation of interest rates as a way to get people into inescapable debt is a form of slavery. And if I sound crazy by saying this, I'll point to China. When China does it, we all recognize it. When China, the Chinese Communist Party, gets countries into debt traps, we recognize it. For example, I believe it was Sri Lanka, one of their politicians years ago was saying, we're going to wake up one day and we're going to be nothing more than a vassal state of the Chinese Communist Party because of interest rates and debt traps. The policies they have for foreign development under the Belt and Road Initiative are established to not work for the countries they're giving it to. The debt and the interest rates are established in such a way that the country will be forced to default, and when they default, the ownership of assets will transfer to the CCP, and the country will fall into debt. When they fall into debt, they are then owned by the Chinese Communist Party. And while you still have the normal illusion of a functioning government, all of the economic systems are therefore controlled by the CCP. The natural resources, the infrastructure, because they're building the infrastructure through the Asian Investment Bank and through the Belt and Road Initiative. And that means the CCP controls basically the GDP, the economies. The economic order has a huge impact because of lobbying and the nature of just government in general, has a huge impact on jobs, financial stability, survivability. And because of that, lobbying, which then determines who gets power and who doesn't, meaning the CCP has created a puppet state. This is how you puppeteer governments. This is how you take over a country without having to fire a shot. You can conquer a nation using manipulative debt traps. And America is in a very manipulative debt trap right now. And we're getting deeper into it. Now, you could argue we're doing it to ourselves. The question is, how do you get out of it? Well, you get out of it by reducing spending. You get out of it by, hopefully rebuilding, preventing the outflowing of currency and creating an internal circulation of currency. If you were to ask me Trump's plan, because I think this is what Elon Musk recognizes, and he sees a ticking time bomb, right? Which is what he said, right? I think Trump's plan is different. I think Trump's plan is short-term, rapid, high spending with the intent of getting rid of the systems that are siphoning off American wealth. And what siphons off American wealth? Well, the outflowing of currency. In other words, people coming here and illegally working, and people coming here to live off the welfare state. That is the siphoning off of our money, basically, right? For an economy to function, you need internal circulation. You need it to flow within the economy, not outside the economy. And I'll talk about this in terms of classical economics. So let's say pre-1900s, okay, back when the world was under more traditional forms of monetary policy. The reason countries had tariffs, because tariffs are so controversial now, the reason America had tariffs, the reason other countries had tariffs was this. If you're conducting trade with other countries, and this was one of the big problems America had prior to the forming of the Republic, when we were actually still a confederacy after the American Revolution. America was very briefly a confederacy of states. And the problem of destructive trade policies is what led to us establishing a federal government. That this was part of the discussion at the time, post-American Revolution. Basically, foreign countries were taking advantage. They were getting more from us than they were giving. And because we didn't have the strength to negotiate trade deals, American states, which were at the time basically individual nations, similar to like the European Union in the way they're set up, actually even different because it was more like a balkanization. The way that the states were set up, they didn't have the power to negotiate, right? They didn't have the strength to negotiate. The federalization process was to create negotiating strength and have the federal government carry out that process. That was part of the massive debate at the time, why they wanted to do it. Part of the reason for it is this. If you're trading at an imbalance, let's say you have 100 gold bars and your adversary has 100 gold bars, Or let's say, and one is blue and one is white, right? Well, I want to trade my white gold bars for your, blue gold bars. The problem is they say, well, one of my white gold bars is worth 2 of your blue gold bars. Let's trade. And you trade back and forth. Eventually, you're going to end up at an imbalance where you've lost all of your blue bars, and it's 2 to 1, so you're going to have 50. You're going to have 50. They're going to have probably 50, but they're going to have all 100 of your blue ones, and they're now the dominating power, and they control you. They've dominated you. It's even worse if they've charged interest on it, where over time they can take another gold bar away every single time. But before you know it, your country's going to be just decimated. You're going to have nothing left. If you're trading at a loss, this is going to be the long-term impact. And if the loss you're trading at is greater than your ability to regenerate wealth, then you're being bled out. You're slowly dying. And you are going to die if you are bleeding out long-term in that fashion. If the amount you're losing is greater than the amount you're accumulating, then you are dying. You're in the course of dying. Now, some would argue this is being done to America intentionally. I don't know. But we have many things doing it to us. Mass foreign aid, the outflowing of American currency, turning us into the capitalist, being sucked dry by the foreign communist. If you talk about mass migration and people coming here and defrauding the system, working here, and then sending money home through remittances, that is them coming here, making money, spending the minimum of what they need, and then siphoning the money out of the country and sending it to foreign assets. That is a big thing. Them coming here, going on welfare, and not recirculating the money, but instead sending it even back to their own countries. One of the big forms of fraud recently uncovered with the Somalian community, by the way, that Trump was calling out, in Minnesota in particular. They're even sending it to terrorist groups. That's a big part of it. For the businesses and the manufacturing here, doing the manufacturing in other countries and doing putting the jobs in other countries, meaning even though the brain is here, the main office might be, which they're not even many times these days, even though it's American innovation driving the market, the profit of the market, the jobs, the workers, the factories, all based elsewhere. Almost the entire Chinese economy, all those neon lights that the moth brains are looking at and saying, wow, look at the future. That's all American. That's the industry we gave them. And the wealth they've enjoyed is almost entirely because of that. It's because we've allowed the offshoring of the American factory. We've done this there. We've done it in Canada. We've done it in Mexico. We've done it all over the world. And so the Americans, we're not producing. What we purchase is not benefiting us because it's going to foreign manufacturing jobs. We're having distribution channels. Then you have foreign workers come here through H-1B visas, and they're getting the drivers, or not even that, they're just defrauding it. They're getting the driver's licenses for the logistical systems, the delivery drivers, the truck drivers, the cab drivers, the Uber drivers. The entire logistical networks are controlled by that. Infrastructure projects are being given to foreign countries. China, for example, getting subway contracts. China, for example, getting train contracts. China, for example, getting mining technology. Why are we giving it to them? Canada getting our contracts for natural resources like timber. Other countries getting resource contracts for other natural materials like iron. China getting the rare earth mineral contracts. We're offshoring all of it. And so we're in the course of dying as a nation if we continue on this track. Massive debt, the offshoring of the ability to reaccumulate it, and the suffering of the people of this country as they're being raided, robbed, manipulated, suppressed. It's crazy. And I think the unhappiness you see among Americans and American youth is a product of this, but they can't recognize the cause of it. A lot of them feel it. They're like, oh, I can't afford a house. Oh, I can't find a job. Oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's because it's all been siphoned off. And that's why you're facing those problems. And I really do think it would do well for the Trump administration to more properly communicate the cause and effect of these things. That, hey, yeah, it's horrible right now. This is why. It's because everything that would make your life good has been given to somebody else, has been given to foreign interest, has been given to like a foreign welfare program, has been given to foreign workers, has been given to the low cost of medical care for like Europe and Canada. That everything that would make your life good is being stolen in some way because of bad trade deals, bad trade policies, foreign trade, mass migration, mass illegal immigration, and just a lot of people robbing you and smiling at you and giving you a thumbs up. That is the reality of our country right now. And, again, back to the point of overspending, if spending and investment will have the effect of rebuilding the American manufacturing base in order to bring jobs back to America, that will stabilize us in order to reaccumulate internally these systems that allow for the benefit of the American people. And it will probably have a bad impact on other countries. China's probably they're going back to the Stone Age, just put it that way. You're going to see what real communism looks like as soon as China loses all the factories. Get ready for it. You're going to watch what they looked like before America gave them the factories and foreign investment, because they haven't changed. You're going to watch them go right back to it. But if they can succeed at this, and if they don't veer from it, and if they stick with it, and they don't backstab the American people by continuing to do it, we will watch the building back of America in the truest sense. And if you were to ask me, this is what I hope for as an American. And in fact, I would hope for this for all countries. I would hope that all countries could focus on the reestablishment of domestic industry, the reestablishment of these things in order to create stable, internally stable systems that have fair trade deals. I think that would be to the benefit of everyone if we were to do that. My long take on this, right? Mona Van Voren, you're saying there's no such thing as separation between business and government. That actually is somewhat true, actually. I'd agree with you. You're saying private industries are run by humans who have political ideas and alliances. Therefore, all is political. Even business is a tool to push political agendas. I'd say to an extent. I agree with you, and I know what you're saying, but I know what some other people would suggest, because I think we're all in agreement to this. The question is, what is your interpretation of what it means? Because if you talk about the idea of Benito Mussolini, fascism, right? His slogan was everything within the state, nothing outside of the state, meaning all businesses are part of the state. All industry is part of the state. All industry is an asset of the state. If you talk about Vladimir Lenin, the Soviet Union, and the modern Chinese Communist Party today, they would say the state capitalist monopoly, meaning the government owns all the capitalist systems. All natural resources, all businesses are government assets, and the individual is assigned to them or granted access to them as a government service. Right? I would say the American idea of this is a bit different. The American idea of it is that our system of government is that the government is in place merely to defend the interests and the rights of the people, but the people are free to build industry and establish businesses, make their lives as they see fit. You could argue, though, and I think this is what you're referring to, and I agree with you on this. You could argue, though, that that then what happens is personal interest is then generated by people's quality of life, and quality of life is determined by the businesses, right? Businesses, I've made a life for myself. Businesses, I'm not being robbed. Businesses, I'm not having a monopoly come into place or a foreign actor come into place to come shut down my factory or my shop or whatever. That the quality of life is being defended from the plunderers, being defended from the bandits, being defended from the tyrants. That the quality of life is based in your ability to make a profit and to generate income in order to substantiate, your lifestyle. that does establish personal interest, and personal interest decides how you vote. I would 100% agree with you on that. Again, the difference between America, and I'd say a lot of traditional cultures, by the way, versus modern socialist interpretations, though, is who controls it. This is private versus government run. And the difference between the ability of you to observe for yourself what is needed, what, the capitalists would say, what the market demands, right? That market demand establishes the markets because you and I look and say, well, what does this place need? You know what? I bet a coffee shop would do really well here. You know what? I bet a restaurant would do really well here. You know what? I bet if I built a bookstore right across the street from this university, it would do really well. That would be a great business. And so you observe what would be demanded within the spectrum of the society, and then you build it. Hey, I think this small town could use a movie theater. Hey, I think this local place could use a diner. Gee, there's no gas station within 50 miles. I bet if I built a gas station here, I'd make a killing. I'd do so well. And that's the way the American system works. People observe what would benefit people because what benefits people is what they want. What they want is what makes money. And because of this, because people have that mentality, they're constantly looking for need and how to alleviate need in a way that benefits everybody. And that's the way a healthy capitalist system functions. That's the way normal capitalism functions, not crony capitalism. And if I were to say my economic theory, like that's basically, what I've talked about I've been going on a rant for a while now, right? This is basically my theory on proper capitalism, right? Proper, beneficial to everybody capitalism. Or you're still going to have bad actors, but let's say for the most part, right? All right, anyways, right? See more butts. You're saying, Josh, in this time of Thanksgiving, what are you thankful for? I'm going to be cheesy. I'm grateful for all of you. I mean it. I know this sounds totally cheesy, and you're like, oh, Josh. No, I mean it. I'm a very, I could say, classical American, and I know some Europeans would be like, Josh, you sound lame. I find meaning in my work. I do. My work, I view it as part of my service to society. I genuinely do. I love what I do. I take pride in what I do. And I enjoy seeing that what I do benefits the lives of others. And again, back to what I was saying about a true capitalist theory. If you're observing what is needed by a community as a way to create business, you're going to be doing that. You are carrying out a service that is demanded, because only when it is demanded do you make money from it. Unless you're selling people something unhealthy, but that's a whole other issue, right? As long as it's demanded, meaning it's wanted, oftentimes meaning it's needed, if you're being responsible to people, you're gonna do well in your life. The opposite is if you're selling people unhealthy things, which I think is just a moral issue. I think if you're selling people unhealthy things, you're probably not doing something good. But I do take pride in my work because I do believe that I make an active effort to be responsible to people, and it prides me and makes me grateful to believe that I'm achieving that. And so I'm grateful for all of you. So thank you for being here. I'm also very grateful for my family. I do think things are heading in a good way in the world, and despite what I state that may sound otherwise. Because I do see a lot of positive trends. And I will state one more thing. When people recognize that something is wrong, that means they are on the trajectory to correcting it. If you as a person look back at your life and say, why did I do that? Why was I so stupid? Why did I make that mistake? You would only say that if you have improved as an individual. Because your ability to recognize that means you've learned a lesson. Your ability to recognize that means that you're now able to recognize the error in your ways. And I do think that as a country and as the world, we're doing that. I think we're now seeing, you know what, this doesn't work and that doesn't work and that doesn't work. Whereas before, a lot of us could not see it. How many of you were in that state where you woke up or you got red pilled or whatever people want to call it? Your ability to recognize the lack of function within certain areas is only there because you've observed another possibility that you think it can be fixed. And I think that is part of the process of repairing something as well. You need to realize something is broken before you can fix it. And so I'm grateful for this. All right, everyone, that said, happy Thanksgiving. I will not be here tomorrow. Enjoy time with your families. Look, I still hope you read Epoch Times tomorrow, but otherwise turn off the news, okay? Enjoy some peace and quiet, and I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Be back again on Monday, so we'll see you then. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being you. I'll see you again on Monday. In the meantime, thank you so much again. Please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. Thank you.